Do you think that climate change is a big deal, or maybe not so much? My name is Kyle Fiala, and today I'm going to be sharing why it is that I think that global warming is in fact an issue of major concern and something that we all need to be taking steps to alleviate. I have this viewpoint because of things that I've learned from courses I've taken in college, as well as through research that I've done on my own time. Today I'd just like to share a little bit of what I've learned and help to explain why it is that scientists see signs that point to climate change, as well as the dire consequences that could transpire should we not change the way that we do things. So to start, I'd like to explain how it is exactly that climate change is occurring. I'm sure you've all heard of greenhouse gases to some extent, such as carbon dioxide, methane, or nitrous oxide. All of these are emitted in a different manner. Carbon dioxide can be emitted by the burning of fossil fuels. Methane can be emitted by livestock that we grow for food. Also, there are other natural means by which these greenhouse gases can be emitted. Also, an increase in deforestation has caused an increase in CO2 simply because there aren't as many plants out there to absorb the CO2 that we emit. Now what these greenhouse gases do in essence is form a blanket around Earth's surface in the atmosphere, trapping in heat from the sun. So when the sun hits the surface of the Earth, normally it's meant to, or some of it is meant to radiate back out into space. But what these greenhouse gases do is absorb that energy instead and keep it suspended in our atmosphere, which causes the temperature of the atmosphere to rise as well as the surface of the Earth. Now, we can test these things in a lab, and it's all good theory, but some people still are not sure as to whether we're seeing significant signs as to whether this is actually happening, and we definitely are. The first the first sign that I'd like to talk about is global temperature. Since the 1880s, we've seen an overall increase in average temperature of the Earth of around 1 degree Celsius, and this is really significant. If it were to get up to 2 degrees Celsius, that would be considered intolerable, meaning certain ecosystems would begin to break down and it would throw all of the other ecosystems off, including our own. The one way that we've seen this with global temperature already is an increase in droughts, which has caused a decrease in food production. Another area that we see climate change impacting an ecosystem is in the Arctic tundra. As you can see here, there is, at this point in time, approximately a 13% decrease per decade in total Arctic tundra mass. There's also a massive loss in land ice mass, and what this loss in ice is doing is decreasing Earth's reflectivity, meaning that even less of that energy that is meant to be radiated back out into space is happening. It's staying within the atmosphere simply because there isn't any ice to reflect that out. Another way that this loss in Arctic ice is impacting ecosystems is it's not just disappearing, it's melting, meaning that much of that ice is adding to our Earth's ocean levels. As you can see here, approximately 3 millimeters are being added to our ocean's levels per year. Some scientists estimate that we could see by the end of the century around a 20-foot increase, and that's kind of the high end of things. But should that happen, we would see massive erosion contamination and flooding. In fact, many of Earth's major cities would be completely underwater, including London. Now, even after seeing some of these signs, there are skeptics that try to refute the occurrence of global warming. I think a lot of these skeptics are spurred on by rumors spread by idealistic groups such as oil companies. They wouldn't want to see a drop in their oil sales, and so they do their best to spread doubt among the people as to whether this climate change is actually happening. Certain things that they like to point out are little spikes in the graphs. For example, this is the Arctic tundra graph, and you can see since 2012 we've actually seen an overall rise in ice mass. But if you look at the complete and total trend, you can see that it's a downward trend. And that trend, those trend lines are true no matter which trend you go to. The sea levels are constantly rising. The global temperature has been increasing, and CO2 levels have also been increasing at a steady increasing rate. Another area that skeptics try to point out is a non-consensus among scientists as to whether climate change is actually occurring, and this simply is not true. In fact, 97% of scientists that state an explicit stance on climate change agree that it is occurring and that it is of great concern. So as you can see, that's just a statement that scientists do not agree on whether it is occurring or not is just simply false. So after all of this, I hope you can now see why it is that the scientific community thinks that the Earth is changing, and also hopefully you can see some of the consequences that could come to pass should we not change things. We can all take steps to improve climate change. We can do our best to limit our own greenhouse gas emissions or support others working throughout the world to alleviate them altogether. And no matter what it is that we choose to do, we need to take some sort of action if we are to preserve the Earth that we've known for several years. Thank you.